Is. I don't know who this J Mix is.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
Welcome, one and all. Welcome to a very, very special show. If you're just tuning in, this is actually a pre-show, but pre-show only by 6 minutes. We are going to be starting here momentarily, and well, I am, dude. This show that we're doing tonight is unlike anything that we've ever done before, and it is we've never done a show like this. We've always talked about music. It's always kind of been funk related or been music related. Hey, Susie, how are you? I'll be saying hello to everybody during this pre-show. Again, if you're just tuning in, you've never seen this show before, we do about 5 to 10 minutes worth of pre-show to kind of let people come in and get settled. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is about 5 minutes from right now, we will actually go live. So if you happen to tune into this, you can fast forward about 5 minutes, but when the edited version goes out, you're not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
Shirley, hello from Philadelphia.
Hey,
Vicky, what's going on? But yeah, we've never done a show like this before, and it's very, very intense. Donna, doing good.
Yeah. This is going to be one of those where we're really going to deep dive into the mentals and the mental state of how things are and people, and hopefully a lot of solutions for those that need it.
So. Yeah, this is a really tough show. This was something that I kind of came up with on the fly as we were getting together, and we were kind of talking about various shows and what we can do. And one of the common threads that I saw from our listeners was that these are really dark times and really, really hard times for a lot of people. So I kind of felt like we needed to address it. And on the same note, also welcome in some guests to talk about their struggles and their scenarios. Like we needed to address it. And so this is a pretty big deal because we have a lot of guests that are coming on the show tonight. It's I'm not exactly sure how we're working through it all, but tonight, at some point in time during this broadcast, you're going to have St. Paul Peterson from The Family, obviously currently LP and also F Deluxe. Michael Dean from Podcast Juice is coming on. Dwan Elliott of the Blackshires, Dwan Blackshire. Garrett Scheider from Parliament Funkadelic. Tony M from New Power Generation. We may have a surprise guest from our good friend Rob Rhythm. He's going to be stopping in as well because this is a topic that we'll talk about that. Morris Hayes from the New Power Generation and Jelly Bean Johnson from The Time. All of them are going to be coming in at some point in time during this broadcast to kind of talk about this topic, which is insane. It's just that's a lot of people. First off,
exactly. And in fact, it's so big that we even decided that the best move is to actually have licensed counselors come on as well. So we'll have professionals who are familiar with these topics and able to talk about these topics and things as well. So it just, oh man, it's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be very interesting. And so to start, we're going to have, I think that Jen Slothor, who is actually Rob Rhythm's wife, a good friend of mine. I've known her for many, many years. She is a licensed counselor, and she will be joining us a little bit later on in the show. There's a time difference there, so she'll be joining us a little bit in the show, but towards the beginning of the show, Jeff's friend Yoshiko is going to be on, and she's also an LCP. She's also a licensed counselor as well. So we are going to be introducing them and talking to them. So this is
and it's Yoshiko, not
Yoshiko. Okay.
Actually,
Yoshiko.
Yeah.
Yoshiko.
I made that mistake by calling her that once.
I like Yoshiko. I think it's got a really good. But we see all these people. We see it's so dark, and it's such a tough time. It's so I can't. it's just a very, very difficult time for a lot of people, and it's really people are just stressed out. Hold on a sec. We're about to go live here, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Oh, we're about to go live here in 1 minute and 12 seconds. So I don't have to make any adjustments here, but I do have to make an adjustment on the radio show. So
Do it.
yeah, I'm gonna just do a little bit of swapping over. You guys don't really have to hear much of anything on this side of things. So we got 50 seconds and then we're going to go live, and then hopefully people will stagger in here. We got a lot of pre-stuff to get through first to kind of talk a little bit about what we're doing and how this is all going to shake out.
Right.
And I would go into a little bit more details about exactly how it's happening, but and at some point in time, as long as everything works well, we are going to be doing we will also open up the phone lines too, so that if you want to share some of your troubles in front of a licensed counselor and some great musical stars, feel free to do that. All right, it is about to switch over right now. So let me get to it here real quick. Three, two, one. It's Mr. Christopher with the Funkatopia live radio show, Funked Up. Welcome to Funkatopia Live. Man.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Yeah. Trying to make sure that we're actually getting levels from you. Hold on.
Okay.
Check 1 2 1 2. Jeff, you got
Check 1 2 1 2. Check. Test.
I'm not hearing you.
Check 1 2. You get tired of me that quickly?
No, we're just not hearing you on the actual broadcast itself. Hold on.
1 2 1 2.
Give me another test.
Check 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2 3. 45 72.
Hold on a second. Let me see if there's anything else I can do to bring you up. I don't think there is. You are live though.
Wow. That just figures, right?
That does figure. All right. So
Susie says she can hear both of us.
You can hear both of us on the app. The Funked Up app is what we're I want to make sure you guys can hear him on the app itself, because I'm not seeing any levels go through out of the app. I'm not seeing that. So I want to make sure that is resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if we can make sure that we made up a bunch of adjustments, and I saw levels coming through. We didn't have any issues. So I'm kind of curious as to what may not be going on.
Jill says I'm not coming through in the app. Fonda says she can hear, but I think she can hear you, probably not me.
Yeah, that's probably what's happening.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's always fantastic. That's always the way to go. So Here's what we're going to do. We will just let you guys on the app play the music, and we'll just go and just do this via Facebook, and we will post this a little bit later on the app, because we don't want this to further interrupt this broadcast and the importance of what's going on here. So we are going to shift. So if you can hear me on the app, just go ahead and switch over to facebook.com/Funkatopia. That's facebook.com/Funkatopia, or youtube.com/Funkatopia to hear the broadcast, because we can't, we're working through all these issues right now. We have to get to moving on the show. So for right now, here is some music for you guys, and we will see you guys shortly. So apologies for all this, but we're working through what we can, and we'll see you guys just shortly. Just head over to facebook.com/Funkatopia or youtube.com/Funkatopia, and we'll try to get the app situation worked out ASAP. For now, here's some music for you guys. Sorry about this.
That's interesting. There, a couple of them are saying they can hear me on the app, but it's extremely faint. It's very low.
Yeah, and I don't know where you would be on that. Yeah, because there's not a specific channel that you're coming in on. So
Right.
we're good. We're good here on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so yeah, a lot of people are saying when they're not hearing you on the app, and I wasn't hearing you. I'm hearing you here fine, which is perfectly fine, because I would rather kind of do this side of things anyways. It's fine. We will make sure that this app that this show is available via the app ASAP. But for right now, facebook.com/Funkatopia and youtube.com/Funkatopia. We can everybody says they can hear us, they can hear you too on the app, but it wasn't showing any levels. So I don't understand why that's
Yeah,
like
most
that.
of them are saying they couldn't hear me, or it was extremely low, very faint. So I think it's the right move to just move on, because we don't
Just
want
move on.
people to miss out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna have some very, very special guests in the house tonight. Let's just go ahead and let me just do a little signal here for me on video so I can make sure that we yeah, that's the signal, which means that we edit from here. Welcome to Funkatopia Live. I am your host, Mr. Christopher, with my illustrious co-host, Jeff Page. And
Hey.
it's going to be an amazing show tonight. It's a tricky show for sure. We have been experiencing quite a bit of it's just one of these things that's just weird. And so we wanted to do a show that would kind of cover a little bit of some of the darkness and some of the depression topics that are going on. And so I put out the word to a lot of friends and cohorts and people in the music industry, and they have all, signed on. And we have a lot of guests that are going to be on here tonight. I'm actually surprised that there's not some of them in the waiting room right now. But we have a lot of guests that are going to be joining us here tonight. So we want to kind of talk a little bit about some of these things that we're experiencing right now. Right. And so I'm going to get to it and just kind of read some of these, read the intro a little bit to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be experiencing here tonight. So I'm just going to start from the top. Tonight is a special broadcast doing something that we've never done before. It's not music related, but a discussion of sorts regarding these dark times and the effects that it's having on not just our listeners, but the world as a whole. Not that the world wasn't unraveling already with the political landscape and the cancel culture and the societal effects of social media, but the pandemic itself really put the whole debacle under a microscope. And coronavirus is just the tip of the iceberg. It just happens to be the one thing that's prevalent at the moment. Right. A majority of people are in a really bad headspace. People are sad, people are tired, exhausted, and worn out. And those are some common components of depression. And right. According to psychiatry.org, depression is a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way that you think, and how you act. Depression causes feelings of sadness and a loss of interest in activities that you once enjoyed. And it can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems and can decrease your ability to function at work and at home. So now we are not WebMD. We obviously are not WebMD. I mean, we're not trying to be WebMD. So nor are we trying to tell you that you're depressed. Right. But here are some common symptoms of depression, which include feeling sad or having a depressed mood. That's the obvious one.
Obvious.
Loss of interest or pleasure in activities that you once enjoyed. I can see that. It's just like sometimes you just go to a concert and you just kind of just zone out. I mean, it's good to be there, and you used to love doing it, but you're just kind of like, meh.
Right.
Changes in appetite that could include weight loss or gain unrelated to dieting. Trouble sleeping or sleeping too much. Loss of energy or an increased fatigue. Increase in purposeless physical activity. For instance, the inability to sit still, pacing, wringing your hands, slowed movements of speech, and they have to be severe enough that other people notice it. So,
Right.
so something, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking or concentrating or making decisions, and on some of the extreme sides, thoughts of death or suicide.
Right.
Now, before you get too carried away or freaked out thinking that you may have depression, many of those symptoms can simply be a standalone symptom. You
Right. A
can,
moment, something happened.
I
Mhm.
mean, and sometimes it can last a week or more, but you can simply just be tired and burnt out. You know, you can just feel like you're just spinning your wheels professionally or whatever it is. You can just be burnt out.
Right.
Or like a lot of people, uh, and I could probably put myself in this mix, just kind of aggravated or annoyed at the incredible amount of absurdity out there. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not going to get into details about specific things, but there's lots of things that are just like, I kind of mentioned cancel culture. Really,
Right.
it's like, something happens and it's just like, really, it's just
Right.
that type of stuff, feeling like you got to walk on eggshells and just kind of, even if it conflicts with your beliefs and, how do you, it just kind of piles on. There's
Right.
just this overwhelming sense of anxiety. And the truth of the matter is that everyone is in it to some extent. Everyone.
Right.
So, in order to show respect to this epidemic, we decided to do a show about it. And this is the show that we have. It's called Funk the Funk, is what we've called the show. Uh, and so, just in order to call it out, discuss it, but not just to identify it, but to alternately give you some motivation and inspiration.
Right.
We're not going to, if you are depressed, this is not healing anything. We're not resolving anything. That kind of stuff takes time if you're truly depressed, but motivated and inspired to maybe push through or to kind of work yourself out of the mix,
Right.
A matter of fact, if we get to the end of the show and you don't feel motivated or inspired, then we've completely missed the mark tonight.
Completely.
Because so our goal is not just to say, hey, you're depressed and just let's listen to a bunch of sad sap stories all night. That's not, I just, that makes it really, really difficult. And if you've got a problem of your own, to hear a bunch of other problems, if you're an empathetic type of person, that's just going to pile onto your own problems. So that's not what
Right.
we want to do here. We want to try to, I wanted to invite people onto the show that were going to be able to help. I knew that we wouldn't be able to do this show alone, just you and me. It's just not going to happen. It's can't do it.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I put out the call for some individuals to join us tonight that you would actually be motivated and inspired by. Not that you're not motivated and inspired by myself and Jeff, but people that are successful in their careers and at various points have definitely experienced these same types of lows.
Absolutely.
And they'll share how they overcame some of those challenges and how they stayed focused and kept their sights set, and how they keep depression from taking over and winning in their lives.
Right.
And in some cases, you might actually find out that some of these guests are still in it.
Right. They're still in it, and you just don't see it. You don't realize it. That's
And hopefully, they will share those stories with us tonight. So during the evening tonight, the guests that have already confirmed to be coming on the show tonight are St. Paul Peterson from The Family, obviously currently LP. Was a project that he does with Eric Leeds. So St. Paul Peterson from The Family and LP and Afterlux is agreed to come on tonight. Michael Dean from podcastjuice.net is going to be on tonight. Dwan Elliott of the Blackshires and NPG is going to be on here. You may know him as Dwan Blackshire. He changed his name to Dwan Elliott. It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I always get on him about that. But Garrett Scheider from Parliament Funkadelic will be joining us tonight. Tony M. from the New Power Generation will be joining us tonight. Morris Hayes from the New Power Generation will be joining us tonight.
Yep.
And Jellybean Johnson from The Time will be joining us tonight. And also somebody that you may know as well, Mr. Rob Rhythm will be joining us tonight. He was another co-host on the show, and he is going to be coming on tonight to kind of talk a little bit about his challenges and whatnot that he's been dealing with. So when he comes on the show, we'll be talking to him. So it's also important to note that even though we have some fantastic guests here tonight, we want to make sure that we are kept in check. And to do that, we have two separate professionals that one, I'm not sure if she's going to be able to join us or not, but we have Jeff has invited Yoshiko Green, CEO of Green Counseling and Consulting Services. She is a resident licensed mental health professional, LCP, with a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And then the other person that I've known for over 30 years of my life, so she also has tons of stories about me that she could share, is Rob Rhythm's significant other, Jen Slothor. She is a licensed professional counselor as well, also an LPC, through the Arizona Board of Behavioral Health Examiners, nationally certified counselor, NCC, through the National Board of Certified Counselors with a master's degree in community counseling. So we have two different counselors that will be joining us at some point here in the evening as well.
Right.
And so some ground rules that apply to guests, callers, which I'm still debating on opening up the phone lines, but guests, callers, and even the host. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be in and out of here tonight. It's kind of a little bit of a surprising scenario. I haven't seen anybody popping in here yet. So we're going to put the word out and make sure that they're on the same time zone.
Right.
And also, there are a lot of people here tonight, and I want everyone to feel that their time is valued here. So, please keep if we open up the phone lines, please keep your stories just brief, and we'll try to keep our answers brief.
Right.
I know some things require more information, but tonight's show is being done with a very broad brush. This is a counseling session for everyone and not just you. Right. And I say that in complete peace and love, as Ringo Starr would say. Peace and love, peace and love.
Peace and love.
So it's my prayer tonight that really will be healing for those that hear and watch this. And I hope that it really helps you too. This very well may become a regular broadcast. It's kind of like a wellness broadcast of sorts. And, again, we'll be talking about a variety of topics tonight. So whenever anyone here guest wise would like to add a comment or something, we'll try to keep an eye on everything. And again, this show was very, very different. It's very unorthodox. And so, we'll walk through all this. All of our guests, these guests that we've invited, have agreed to come on the show for you and your healing, but hopefully they get a lot out of this too.
Exactly.
And so all that being said, let's kind of talk a little bit about
the biggest thing about this is the sharing that's going to happen is going to surprise people, because everyone is in their bubble, and the way society's built, it's built to put people in their own private worlds, their own worlds. But once you start opening up, you realize that all of whatever it is specifically that I myself happen to be going through, so many others are too. And we just never realize how many other people are going through maybe to the T, almost exactly what we're going through, or have experienced it. Most of the things we touch upon this evening, whether it's happened to an individual person personally, it has happened to someone they know, most likely. I don't think there's any topic that we'll touch on that no one's ever heard of.
No.
So I think this is going to be a very powerful evening. And what we really want and we're looking for is just openness and, receiving. Because once you open your mind and you can receive, that's when, whether you're going through something or someone is going through something, that's where healing can start, or where you can learn how to approach someone who you suspect or believe is having issues, or know they're having issues, because the whole point is it may not just be for us. It may be for someone else that's not in here tonight. So we're going to take this information and hopefully everyone can grow and learn, and we can just spread that because that's the whole point of this episode, this show.
Yeah. So one of the things that, we made sure of, and StreamYard as a whole can only accept 10 people at a time on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the challenges that we had was kind of trying to figure out ways that people, if anybody was willing to stagger out to come in later, that they would be able to come in a little bit later, so that we could make sure that we're never in a situation where somebody has to be forcefully dropped off, or any of that. So I think a lot of people are going to be kind of just trickling in here. So I think, want to talk a little bit briefly about some of the topics that we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to be talking about, one of the topics is a little bit dark times in general. I mean, just things that happen, and really a lot of things that happen with the pandemic in general. When the pandemic hit in 2020, it was unlike anything that had ever happened. The sense of fear and the sense of panic and the sense of mortality, and it caused really deep rooted fear in a lot of people. And I think it kind of sent a lot of people spiraling out. And so a lot of people that had certain, I wish one of the counselors was here right now, so I don't use the wrong word. People had certainly quirks. I think that's probably the better, lighter way to put it. Really kind of we got a face full of that real quick. And that was really like the people that you thought were a little bit normal, maybe on the edge, but okay. they were still socially, they were still able to kind of, move around and be part of the herd without any problems. But then all of a sudden, once this created this whole vibe, it went south really, really quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, then we're also going to be talking about another facet of this is job loss and financial hardship. So I know that the pandemic also created a lot of situations, and I know I'm blaming a lot of this on the pandemic, but the truth of the matter is that the pandemic really did blow this up.
Right.
I mean, everything was already there, but the pandemic just really threw it hard.
It's an example of a true snowball effect.
Right.
It starts here, and then that steam rolls down, and then of course that affects this, and then we just continue on, and then before you know it, everything's affected. That things that aren't even related, butterfly effect, that kind of thing.
Yeah. A butterfly flaps its wings, right? It starts out as a little woof, and the next thing you know, it just kind of just builds and builds and builds until
exactly.
It creates a tsunami. So we're talking about some of the job loss and the financial hardship and some of the effects that has had on people mentally, loss of energy, fatigue, and burnout. That's something that we're going to be talking about, because that's a big one. That's a huge one. I think a lot of people have experienced that. We're also going to be talking about loneliness. I know there's a lot of people out there that are single, they're divorced, or just simply just don't have a lot of friends, or just don't like to do the social thing. But that also has an ongoing effect as well that can push a person into depression.
Right.
We're also going to be talking about grief and death and loss of a loved one. We'll be talking about that as well. That's big, because a lot of people, once again, during the pandemic, have lost a lot of people. You've lost somebody.
Right.
Jelly Bean, who will be on the show later, has experienced a loss. Rob Rhythm has experienced losses. I've experienced losses. A lot of people here have experienced losses. I think I saw somebody in the chat room that mentioned that they had lost their son, and they just hasn't been the same. They can't get out of that spiral. So we definitely will be talking about that one, but that's a heavy one. So we want to make sure that the counselors are on board for that one before we delve into that.
Correct.
Some people are just overwhelmed. That's another aspect we'll be talking about, just people being overwhelmed. And then, of course, again, the whole purpose of this is to make sure that we motivate and inspire. So I'm going to bring in a couple of guests right now, and just kind of, and you obviously know these individuals because you have their albums. You have him.
You do. And don't say you don't. You do.
Don't say you don't. First off, I'd like to welcome the one and only Garrett Scheider in the house from Parliament Funkadelic. What's up, brother?
What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Hey.
We're doing good. We're doing good. We're gonna make sure we have room for everybody here. And then I also like to welcome the one and only from the NPG, Mr. Tony M. Tony Mosley in the house. How you been doing, man?
What's good? What's good? What's good? Let me tell you something. Right now, I'm just totally blasted that Star Child is in the building right now. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. That's my crew.
I'm glad y'all have me down. It's all
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
How you
Me and
doing,
P used to. I'm doing good, partner, man. Me and P used to talk about y'all all the time, and then we had the opportunity to work with George and crew, and during the movies and just the recording sessions y'all did out at Paisley. I would stop in and just check y'all, and I was just totally enamored and blown away because y'all were my crew growing up. Let me tell you something.
Awesome. Well, they were my crew growing up too.
Right.
I can't believe it. I'm actually we didn't want to turn this into a musical thing, but we had the one and only, and Garrett, you know him very well, the one and only Danny Bedrosian on the show last week. Keyboardist for Parliament Funkadelic, and he has actually written a book from that covers every single song that Parliament has ever done, starting from 1955 all the way to current. Like who was it? Like kind of like Dwayne Tudor's book, like who was in the studio, who did what, all that stuff. And so I'm looking forward to that book coming out. But yeah, it's an honor to have you guys. So one of the things we're talking about here is grief, and I'm very, very glad to have the two of you on board. And as I said, tonight we will be welcoming all types of guests tonight, and these are our first two very, very honored guests. But you can expect to see St. Paul Peterson from The Family will be here, Michael Dean from PodcastJuice.net will be here, Dwan Elliott of the Black Shirts will be here. We have Garrett Scheider here, we have Tony M, Morris Hayes from the New Power Generation, and Jelly Bean Johnson, all of which will be joining us tonight at some point in time. We're just kind of just spreading things out. But when I put out the word for you guys to join us tonight, what did you, Tony, I'll start with you. What was it that spoke with you that, I mean, is grief something that you're really kind of dealing with right now as far as, or not necessarily grief, but as far as like little elements or facets of depression that, is it you or friends or loved ones that really felt like you were doing this call?
Well, I think the grief part hit home. I just recently lost my mother on November 16th. So trying to deal, with that portion of it. So that kind of hit home, and just also the depression state, not only with the grief, but the depression, like as you had mentioned earlier, COVID hit everybody hard, man. You know what I'm saying? We were, as the NPG, I could speak, we're on a roll. We were torn and we were staying busy. I mean, creatively, we were just getting into that niche, working on the new material, and then bam, that hit. And then you find yourself trying to do a reset and get back into that same space. So that's been a challenge. So I think the discussion topics hit home with me in general. So I thought I would pop in for a minute.
Yeah. And one of the things that was really big on that side of the world, obviously, that side of the depression world was the loss of a loved one. And I know that a lot of people have experienced that, and it's been really, really tough. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail when Jelly Bean comes on too, because Jelly Bean suffered a loss. My co-host Jeff Page also suffered a loss as well. He'll go into detail about that. My cousin passed away just a couple of weeks ago from COVID. So it's just been so much. It's been so difficult to deal with. So one of the things I want to make sure of is we got two more guests in the mix. The first person I want to bring in is Yoshiko. I keep on wanting to say Yoshiko. Thank you for correcting me. Yoshiko, who is going to be our licensed therapist on point. Yoshiko, how are you doing?
Hey, Yoshiko.
Hi,
Hi
Yoshiko.
there. Hi, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me to the show. I'm super
Going,
excited. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to remove our logo off of here because it's
Yeah, we're blocking people out.
Yeah, it's blocking you out. But that may be okay. Maybe
I mean, it's just me.
yeah, maybe I'll block myself out. Maybe that's what I'll do. So for those who don't know, Yoshiko, what's good here is that we wanted to bring her on because of the fact that we wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of levity here and legitimacy. She is a CEO of Green Counseling and Consulting Services. She's a resident licensed mental health professional with a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And I believe she's also an official LPC as well, licensed professional counselor. So so congratulations. Thank you very much for coming on board.
And so you mentioned it. She also is working and specializing working with artists and people in the music industry. So it even is more appropriate. So just thought I'd put that out there too.
Awesome.
So yes, Yoshiko.
Yeah. So so that's awesome. And as mentioned, so we are kind of honored to have, and I'm like trying to remove this logo here and make sure that you guys are all
There
seeing.
you go.
Yeah, there we go.
There you
All right,
go.
we got that.
Production
Also,
on-
yeah, so we're going to be talking about this grief thing pretty much in detail here in just a minute. But I also want to bring on another guest, from the new Power Generation. Would you please welcome to the audience, Mr. Morris Hayes in the house?
Mr.
How
Hayes
are you?
in the building. How you doing, partner?
What's up? What's up, T? How you doing, man?
How you
How's
doing,
everybody
man?
doing?
All right.
What's happening, Morris?
Man,
Hey,
so this is a
I'm
really
all
big
excited.
this is a really big thing because we were talking a little bit about some of the depression and loss and everything. So Morris, tell us a little bit about maybe some loss that you've have you had the loss of a loved one during this pandemic or over the past couple of years?
Oh yeah, I lost my mom in 2020, and I lost my dad 6 months later in the beginning of 21 in January. So both contracted COVID. My dad died from COVID related pneumonia. My mom had COVID. She kind of got through it, and then took a turn for the worse. Right as they released her from the hospital, she kind of got through it, and then they found her inoperable. So she perished shortly thereafter. So yeah, COVID has been. I'm sitting here right now with COVID. So I mean, it's pretty
Wow.
crazy, and it's been something. There's been a lot of folks I know lost friends, family, and so yeah, it's definitely a scourge that's happened, and a lot of people have been affected by it, and it's a tough situation.
So is there anything specifically that you're doing to kind of handle that grief? I mean, I know that it's parents parents and children specifically are really tough losses, just because it's is there anything specific that are you just like keeping busy? Is that like a typical response to that type of grief?
Well, I think there's a myriad of things that that someone can do. I have to tell you, man, that my band and my family band and friends have been paramount in dealing with it. I'm sitting on the phone on this live here with Tony, who's been not just a great band member but a great friend. All of my people have really supported me in my situation. I think we've supported each other. I think it's a community kind of a thing. It affects the community. I think the community has stepped up as far as I'm concerned, and been there for me and for mine. And so I think it's a combination of, I got work that I can do. I got friends, and I think it's just a combination of all of these things that help us to cope with these different situations. And a lot of times I just find myself, it's interesting, man. You get that thing where it gets difficult to kind of focus, And I think it's really cool when you have your infrastructure around, and that can just kind of help get you back centered and back on point in terms of just trying to pull everything back together, man. Because in the scope of things, especially when you see how crazy divisive COVID has, how political, and how some of these things that really should not have happened or should not be. It's like we're talking about a disease, and it has no respective persons about what your politics are, and
Yep.
what side of this issue you're on. It don't care nothing about none of that shit. It's just like it's about, if you get it, it's gonna do what it do. And if you don't, you don't have your situation together, whatever it may be. I mean, it's the luck of the draw in some situation that affects different people differently. But I think we've let it get to this whole other thing that to me doesn't really even matter.
Doesn't even
It's a
matter.
disease,
Yeah.
and it's something that we all have to rally around each other and just kind of hold each other up, and just keep everything moving.
Yeah. And Tony, do you feel like that is kind of, are you kind of the same MO as far as you just kind of keeping busy and kind of keeping your mind off of the loss? Is that
Yeah.
kind of
I think that's the norm that you fall into, to try to keep yourself busy. As Morris stated earlier, I mean, uh, us as band members and friends and brothers, we've been able to hold each other up. He was there for me when I lost my mother a month and a half, 2 months ago. This COVID thing, as he stated, it's no rhyme or reason, right? My mother didn't pass from COVID, but the COVID situation affected how I was able to see her in her last moments, right? So for me, it wasn't the fact that it was part of the fact that I wasn't even I couldn't get there in time, right? So um, me not being able to actually see her or hold her hand, just let her know I was there. That was part uh, of the part that really got me. So and also my family structure, my wife, my kids, my in-laws, everybody was there, and have helped me along the way. So without having that strong family unit, or that structure around you, I can see where you can go into this black hole,
Yeah.
and be hard to come out of. I luckily also have a day job, so that's support there. They were giving me the opportunity to take the time that I needed to be with family and handle affairs. So just being able to have that breathing room to deal with it when you're ready to deal with it, and not everybody coming at you at once. And people, their thoughts and prayers, you appreciate and you love. But I appreciated fans, friends, and everybody giving me the room to breathe and process before I was really able to talk about it, or was ready to talk about it, because we all process this differently.
Yeah, I think I definitely think this is it's a really common thread. I've got another guest in the hole too. Let me go ahead and bring him in. The one and only, a very, very good friend of mine, Mr. Michael Dean from podcastjuice.net. How you doing, Michael?
Michael
Hey,
Dean.
hey man,
MD,
I'm good.
MD.
What's up,
Yes,
family?
sir.
What's
How you
up?
guys doing?
All
How
right.
you doing, Mike?
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that we kind of talk about this before we kind of get off this topic. And we're not going to get off this topic anytime soon, but Yoshiko, I wanted to kind of ask this question to you because you heard both Morris, Mr. Hayes, and Tony kind of explain the same thing, that the way they kind of handled their grief was really ultimately keeping busy. Now, you are a licensed mental health professional, so I think this is important why we kind of had you in the mix. Is this a normal human? It's a normal human thing. It's not like a fight or flight type of thing. It's just like this is kind of just what we naturally do. And do you think that's the best way to resolve that feeling of depression and grief? And the second part to this question is, do you feel like there is something specific that people who don't have that support system should do in order to kind of overcome that grief?
So one thing about grief is that we know that everyone grieves differently. So you want to allow the individual to grieve the way that feels natural to them. Um, the point where I would say that where a professional may become beneficial is that when you're finding that all of your coping skills, so if your coping skill is throwing yourself into work, if your coping skill is, surrounding yourself, more with family, doing whatever that you have to do to kind of take your mind and take it day by day, because with grief, it really is, I don't even want to say day by day, it's really an hour by hour situation, and you're just kind of going through the motion every single day while you're watching the entire world just operate, you know and with trying to get through that, some people have been successful um with the day by day, and with loss, I don't know if you ever really deal with loss, but you just tend to, I guess, you learn to live with the loss of a loved one. And but some people really have a very difficult time, and that's when I would suggest, when you don't have that support from family members, when you don't have support from friends, it's time for therapy. When you're finding that everything that you're doing is really not helping. You're sleeping more, you're not eating. And we're talking about, after a couple of months, you're kind of given a little bit of a grace period because everybody grieves differently, like I said earlier. But when we're talking about you're going months of no sleep, months you're sleeping too much, months where you're no longer engaging in the things that bring you the tad bit of happiness, and when you start isolating yourself more, that's when it's time to go and see a professional to really help you go through those stages of grief. So,
So you're saying that basically with what Tony and Morris are doing in regards to their losses that they've had, um, that probably is the best approach for most people
yes.
in the
Mhm.
beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
We have another guest in the house. All these fantastic guests. We have another guest in the house, and you guys may know this gentleman. It's Rob Rhythm and his wife Jen.
Hey guys.
Rob
Hey,
is
Rob.
What's
back.
up?
Hey, Rob.
And
At
these
least
two,
briefly.
yes, these two individuals have known me longer than anybody, and so they've got secrets, and we're not allowed to share those secrets.
What? That's the only reason I came in.
Well, Rob Rhythm, we used to be a co-host here on Funkatopia Live. So, but I know he wanted to come in since we're kind of talking about depression. But he's also has his lovely wife Jen with him as well. And Jen is a licensed professional counselor at LPC through the Arizona Board of Behavioral Health Examiners, also NCC, a nationally certified counselor through the National Board of Certified Counselors with a master's degree in community counseling. So we have not one but two licensed professionals on here who are going to be helping us kind of talk through all this stuff and make sure we're getting legitimate information. Now, Jen, you kind of heard, how you doing, Jen? I haven't seen you in a while.
Good.
You heard what Yoshiko said. Do you feel like that pretty much aligns with the way that you kind of feel as well, that it's best to kind of keep busy in those scenarios and definitely lean on a support group of friends and family, just to kind of help you get through it. But if you are in a scenario where you feel like it's really overwhelming you and it affecting your daily life, that probably a professional is the best way to go.
I definitely agree that everybody grieves differently, because everyone's loss is unique. So, Rob and I have sustained a significant loss in our family in the last couple of months, but his loss is different than mine because we had a different relationship with that individual. And so you can have a single person that dies, and their child or their parent or their spouse experiences that loss differently depending on the nature of that relationship. So yeah, grief is very unique to the individual. It's also unique to the experience that you have yourself, just kind of in general, about what support systems are helpful to you. For some people, music is really helpful as not just an escape, but also a solace. For other people, it's spending a lot of time with their animals, because that is a real comfort to a lot of people. For some people, certainly they like to throw themselves in to work. But what you want to make sure is that you're not just numbing out, because numbing out the feelings of grief may give you some temporary relief, but it doesn't address the issue as a whole. One of the things that I like to recommend to my clients, and I also run a workshop from my practice, is this book. It's called the Grief Recovery Handbook, and it's based on the grief recovery method out of the Grief Recovery Institute in California. It's been around for about 20 years, and you can read that book and work through the grief recovery method on your own, or you can do it with a therapist, or you can find a group that does it. It's an 8-week, very paced process. But what it does is it allows you to deal with it, not just, I think people are tempted because grief is so painful to just shove it down and just kind of keep going, keep going, keep going. The problem with that is every successive loss you have after that ends up, opening that box back up. And if you haven't dealt with it, it can really have a cumulative effect and eventually, result in paralysis or depression. So it really is important that you find some way to cope with it. A lot of people will find means through the creative arts, through dance, through painting, through sculpting, through something to do with their hands or whatnot. But finding through writing, journaling, that sort of thing. So looking for some means of expressing the pain that's inside, because unfortunately, grief is one of those things that's universal. We will all sustain significant losses in our lives, and we don't really do a great job in our culture about educating people about how to deal with it.
Yeah, and that was definitely one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to do this show, is because I knew that everybody was going through a little bit. I mean, we would have a regular show and we would be all happy and laughing, and I would watch the chat area and people are talking about loss and sickness and just really devastating things that are happening. And so I know that that's happening to a lot of different people, and I wanted to make sure that the common people that are here, like myself, and that we all can see that it's not just us. Mm-hmm. It's amazing people like Tony and Garrett and Mr. Hayes and Jeff and Michael. It affects everybody. Mm-hmm. It touches everybody, and I think that's a huge thing. And I don't want to get too far into the loss thing, because I really kind of, again, I wanted to make sure, and some of you caught this at the beginning and some of you didn't, but we want to make sure that this show is motivational and inspirational too, because some people are in it. Yeah. Some people are just, and they can't really kind of figure out any inspiration. So I'm going to kind of ask some fine folks here. I'll start with Michael. Michael, you're like, oh no, I don't know. Oh no, Michael.
Oh man, I gotta be first.
It's all good.
Yay.
What would you say now? I don't know, where you are. We haven't really talked about your story at all, but obviously, a lot of people are a fan of your work. What would you say to serve as a motivation or inspiration to somebody who's kind of dealing with some of this stuff, dealing with grief, or if a one-on-one, you saw a friend that was experiencing something that was really, really tough and traumatic, what would you say to help?
Well, I'll say this. I'd be saying it to myself as well, right? Because I'm in the same place as everybody else. We all do have our things. And let me just first to say, man, so much respect and love to Tony and Morris Hayes. I can't even imagine that sort of, losing your mother. That's just like, I'm 52 and I still have to go to my mom today and cry and try to explain like I need help. So these brothers, my heart goes out to you. But to answer your question, I would say, just rest, man. Sometimes you just have to rest and stop. It's okay to stop. Like for me, that's a big thing. I don't want to stop. I want to keep working and doing all this stuff, but I have to realize I have to pump my brakes. It's okay to stop. all these expectations we may have from our kids or our job or our spouse or whatever, sometimes we just got to take care of the expectations we have for ourselves. And it's okay to just slow down because there's a lot of stuff going on. And everyone's not going to have the answers. Shit, I don't have the answers. But I know that I can sit down with you and I can just listen to you, or we don't have to say nothing. We could just cry, but we could just stop. Like we don't have to solve that problem right now, but we could take a break. You know what I mean? So that'd be something I would say.
I mean, well, that's a fantastic answer. Morris, what would you, I mean, I know you're already going through it, but I know that when Tony experienced his loss, you know, what were some of the things that you said to kind of inspire him and to kind of motivate him, just to kind of help him pull through? Or what would you say to somebody? There may be lots of people here. There's lots of people that are online right now listening. What exactly is a good word of advice for some folks?
I think the biggest thing is for at least for me, is to just let people know that whatever I can do, I will do. And if you need me, man, just pick up the phone. I'm on the first thing smoking. I'm doing this. I know how it is when it comes to my family and people that I love and I care about. I will move heaven and earth to do whatever I can for people, even if they got COVID, if they got whatever. That's how I get down. I'm just like, I come from a nurturing family, you know, my aunts and everything when I was growing up, man. It's like they took care of my grandfolks, and my aunt Susie just lived her whole life to take care of my grandfolks, man. I mean, she forfeited her own life to see after them and make sure every day that they was looked after. That's how she down. And so what I take away from it is that sometimes we need each other and we have to do what we can to support one another. So what I can do for Tony is just say, I know how that feels, brother. I have empathy for the sympathy and empathy for the situation. And whatever I can do is tell you that, just keep your head up, keep it moving, because, you know, that's what our parents would want us to do anyway. They want us to keep thriving and keep living. You know, if everything goes really as it should, you know, no parent wants to lose a child. So by all things natural, they should go before we do. We know it's inevitable and it's going to happen at some point. You know, I didn't know that COVID would be the culprit and all of that. You know, you can't foresee the future, and you don't know that kind of a situation. But at least what you know is the chances are, if you live long enough, you're going to see. Like, I'm almost 60, yo. I mean, it's like my folks' family, you know, they marching on in, man. So that's just the natural progression of things. But I think that you know, you become aware that that's the reality of the situation. And then, so what do? So then you just you avail yourself to just make sure that everybody in your circle, that you do what you can do to hold them up and to support them. And I think that's at the end of the day, it all comes down to support. And then knowing that they can, you know, that you got the back, you know what I mean? And I think when they feel that kind of a thing, and they know that there's some level of comfort and knowing that I'm not out here walking by myself, and I got somebody that's looking out, and somebody that's in my corner. And I think that's a big part of the human experience, in terms of just knowing that there's somebody else that's dealing with something that you've dealt with. They can speak on it because they've gone through that situation and they know what they're talking about. And I think it just comes down to the support piece of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And actually, we have another guest in the house. The one and only Dewan Elliott is in the house. Oh man, look at that beard, man!
What's going on, brother?
How long has it been since
up?
I've seen you that you got a beard now?
Yeah,
Oh,
man, getting
man.
old. Getting old.
He didn't have that beard last time I saw him.
No.
Same here.
He getting regal. That's what he is. A distinguished
I like
gentleman.
He's showing his wisdom. He's showing his wisdom.
Oh, he came in all shaman on us. All right.
Man, hilarious.
How you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
Hey, everybody's looking good. Everybody's looking good. That's good. Come to see you guys, man.
Absolutely. Well, Dewan, I kind of got you up. And I'm going to Garrett, I'm going to you next, because Garrett's like Mr. Happy, like all the time. Well, we have to like just I don't know. He's just amazing. So we got to get some positivity out of Garrett here.
I might have to have some opposite perspective for you on this topic. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I do what I can.
Duan, I don't know, what was it that's because I reached out to you, we talk off and on, but what was it that kind of really spoke to you that you kind of felt that you compelled that to come on the show and really kind of, share some insight? Is there something about, just the topic of depression that has affected you recently, or in your family, loss of a loved one or anything along those lines?
Yeah. I think it's just very important. And my grandmother used to instill this in us all the time, just to keep God first, keep
Yeah.
God first. And
Yes.
understand that, it's just a way of life. We come in, we leave, and it's just the cycle of life. And once we get it, at the end of the day, I'm a fan of the big picture. And I know that, because I've lost 2 cousins within the past 8 months, like close cousins. So yeah, I get it. Morris, my condolences, brother.
Thank you,
Tony,
brother.
my condolences, brother. You guys are in my prayers. But yeah, it's just about keeping God first and staying focused. And at the end of the day, we can get through this if we just keep God first. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I would agree.
Amen.
That's really the core, the core of it for sure. Dewan, you always have, I mean, sorry, Garrett, you've always been like one of the happiest dudes I've ever met in my life. But you obviously have, something going on in the background that you kind of keep inside pretty well. So what was it that really kind of spoke to you about coming on the show today?
So specifically, there was a few topics that you guys have touched on in all of this conversation that I kind of have some real perspective on. So let's start to back at the beginning when this thing first hit. I had a lot of momentum going on, and a lot of things happening, shows, and the world was my oyster, and then all of a sudden everything just kind of stopped, right? And threw everything into disarray. So I did like probably most of you guys did, and all I did was I just kind of really went head first into my work. I found a new platform. I started podcasting, and I found a lot of ways to kind of still keep myself seen and still able to entertain folks, even though we couldn't be around folks, right? And I got into it, and I mean, I dove head first into it, and that's what I did through most of 2020 till I got to the end. And about the end of 2020, going into 2021, all of a sudden, I kind of got to a point where it was too much for me. I didn't want to be in the studio. I didn't have any motivation to create any music anymore. Um, my support system is a little weird because truth of the matter is most of the folks that were nearest and dearest to me in my life are already gone. I have no more grandparents left. I don't really have a lot of close friends that I kick it with regularly. um, and that's kind of where it is. Everything is kind of an array as far as that goes. As far as musically, I have a lot of associates, but nobody that I'm really like close with that I would really call to run down my feelings to. You know what I mean? So I kind of got to a point where I started feeling like really kind of isolated and really kind of I guess for lack of better term, started realizing that I was starting to get really depressed. Um, 2021 came, and then I lost my nephew. My nephew died suddenly in a car accident last May, which was kind of hard. Um, I've recently just had a grandson. My grandson is born in this world without his father, who was taken from him because of COVID 1 month after we found out that he was coming into this world. So that's kind of thrown me for a nice loop. And then, to kind of cap that off, I just recently lost a close cousin to me just a few weeks ago. We kind of someone that I kind of actually come up with in the P Funk circle. With same age, just suddenly just gone. I don't know if it was COVID or what it was. It just suddenly just gone. You know what I mean? So the accumulation of everything, um, almost 2 years later, has still kind of got me to a point where I'm trying to find my footing again. Because I got thrown so much for a loop and got so burnt out with consuming myself with work that I just didn't know how to. I kind of lost myself is what I ended up doing. I kind of really lost myself. Um, and still a lot of uncertainty out here because of COVID. So, things are still kind of at a little crossroads, and you still kind of at a point where you're trying to figure things out. And to what you were saying, Mr. Chris, typically I stay positive and I stay upbeat because I've persevered a lot of adversity in my life, and in that perseverance, the one common denominator was the one common thing was no matter how bad things got or how weird things got, they always balanced out. You know what I mean? They always found a way of working themselves out, and I always took solace in that. But just recently, things just don't really feel that way anymore for me. You know what I mean? So to culminate that entire rant, I'm kind of still at a point where I'm trying to find myself, what I mean, trying to pull myself up out of whatever doldrums that I found myself in. And I thought I had kind of made myself immune to any of this when I discovered podcasting and got into recording another album, and I thought I was good, and I thought it was going to be fine. But yeah, almost 2.5 years later, man, I'm really not. I'm really not doing well. I still smile because that's just me. You know what I mean? And I'm not the kind of person who I try not to harp on the bad. You know what I mean? I try not to bring bad energy anywhere. So I will rarely come into a situation talking about the things bad that are going on with me or negative things. I try to keep things upbeat because I feel like everyone thrives in that kind of an environment, man. I feel like everyone thrives when they're feeling encouraged, when they're feeling comfortable, that kind of thing. So and I've always been that kind of guy. I can always consider myself a morale guy. But yeah, it's even hard for me right now. You know what I mean? And I've even been considering therapy lately.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic idea because, just like both Jen and Yoshiko have said, that it is, it very much is a scenario where if you kind of get to a point where you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're not making progress, even when you're kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at it, it comes a time where you have to have that second ear. You have to have somebody that's going to come in and actually, walk you through it. And a licensed professional like Jen. Jen's website is thunderbirdoasis.com. I know that she does counseling as well. Yoshiko, do you have a website as well?
Yeah, I think we just lost Yoshiko.
Okay. I'll pull her back on here real
She's
quick.
having internet issues, she said.
Okay. I see her.
Yeah.
And Yoshiko. Yes, you
Can
can.
you hear me? All right.
Yes, I can hear you. Do you have a website as well?
I do not have a website. Funny story. I have been in the mental health field for 20 years, and right around 40, I decided to go back and get my master's, and actually received my letter from the Board of Counseling today that I am an approved
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
licensed counselor. So I
A lot of
can
work.
now
That's what's up.
officially build my website and represent myself as a licensed professional counselor. But I am on Psychology Today if anybody is, looking for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm
Right.
just kind of building that part up and starting to get licensed in other states is what my plan is.
And
And
we,
just
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, just a word on that real quick, man, because you know, I can't obviously can't speak for everybody, but I know in the world of black folks, man, I know coming up, especially here in the South, I mean, it wasn't a lot of emphasis put on
Hmm.
therapy. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Therapy, and I have to tell you, man, when my dad took ill last year, I started seeing a therapist for the first time. Really, I remember before I got married, we went to see, like a marriage counselor and stuff like that, before you get married and stuff. But you know, I've had a lot of crazy stuff happen over the years. I lost my brother when he was 8, car wreck that we were all in, and a lot of stuff happened, man. And it's just like sometimes the expectation is just like, hey, buck up, keep it moving. You got to do your thing and everything
Hmm.
like this, and then you be tough, all of this stuff. I'm gonna tell you, man. I was seeing my doctor, and I just asked him. I said, if he knew somebody, and he says, man, he says there's somebody in this building. He walked me down to the lady, and I talked to her, and just took a meeting. I'm gonna tell you something.
Let me see if it
Excuse me.
works better up here.
And it was incredible, man, because I felt like after just talking to this person, because the whole thing with therapy is like if you find somebody you can really, just share that stuff with. It really, like, it was crazy, man. I just felt like weight came off of me. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of things that systemically you don't know why you do what you do and everything like that, man. And it's just like sometimes you just need some help unpacking all of the trauma and all of the stuff that's happened. And it's not enough to just say buck up to somebody and yeah, tough it out and all of this kind of stuff. It's cool to talk to a professional and somebody that knows something about these types of things. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about or humiliated about or anything like that. I think there's a stigma sometimes put on therapy, especially in black folks circles. And I just think
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because I think a lot of these folks do a lot of great service to people who are dealing with things that you may not quite understand and you don't have a handle on. And I think, I'm absolutely 100 with Juan. I think, your personal faith goes a long way to shore things up. But I think it's a combination of all of these things that help us to kind of get on the other side of whatever issue that we're having. And I just want people to not get into that thing where it's like this stigma and that we have this thing about yeah, now you're gonna be cool and this that and then take the professional help if you can get it, if you have insurance, if you have anything like this, by all means do that and get yourself straight and get yourself in a place where you're healthy and physically and mentally.
And I
I
think I'll
say the
also,
same
as
thing
you were
all the
stating,
time.
Mo, a good thing. A lot of times, talking to the professional is it allows you to open up even more than you would than talking to
Absolutely.
friends, right? Because you have this, am I embarrassed to really open up and say what I'm really feeling or dealing with?
Right.
So just having that
Absolutely.
ear, really helps a lot.
Yeah.
I'd
One
like
of
to
the
chime
things
in
that
on that, Tony. The clients that I've seen that have come in that have really strong supports within their family and within their community, part of what they tell me about coming in and seeing a professional is they worry so much about offloading onto their friends and family that are also experiencing the same loss
Hmm.
that by coming in and talking to someone that's unrelated, they feel like they can kind of download more
Hmm.
than they would to their friends or their family,
Absolutely.
worried
Yep.
about their reaction or the impact that what they're saying is going to have on them. And just
Absolutely.
kind of having a place to work that out where they don't have to worry about the other person's reaction to it really makes a big difference to them. And yes, definitely, Maria, the confidentiality and objectivity helps a lot. So just kind of want to put that out there too. A lot of people think that therapy is about, oh, you're sick or, there's something major wrong. And lots of people just come in for, 4, 5, 6 sessions, and that's really all they need. And just that listening ear where you're
Yeah.
not going to be judged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of the things I've noticed or understood is because even myself, last year I lost my daughter, and she passed away, and it actually it wasn't directly COVID, but because of her condition, she ended up with severe brain damage. So it actually took months of going through this before she finally passed, trying to improve. And one of the things that will happen to an individual is you'll go through your depression or whatever it is, and we don't necessarily realize that we're in this state. A lot of times things happen to us and we don't know we've fallen into a depressed state, or we're going through things like it's such a heavy burden. And just like the everyone is aware of, and our specialists have said, everyone grieves differently. For myself, I had a moment where I was even getting upset at myself because similar to Garrett, I'm always a happy guy. I'm always bouncing, and it's other people that I put first. They're very important to me, and I enjoy helping others. So I put myself on the back burner, and I was getting upset at myself because I was being happy, thinking, am I supposed to be happy or am I not supposed to be happy? Because I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. So a lot of us, it's not that people don't always go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a specialist. Sometimes they don't know or realize it or identify when they're having an issue. And at that point, then that quiet that was mentioned earlier becomes so important, because with quiet, then you start to internalize, start to learn, hey, maybe something is going on, and maybe it's time to have that conversation. And I totally agree. It makes a big difference to have a strong support system. And a lot of people don't even realize the amount of support that they have around them, because we're, again, like I was saying earlier, we're in our bubbles. The world is geared to individualize and separate everyone. So we just think it's me, it's just me, and it's really not. So I just want to put that out there as well.
And that's a
you're
cool
right,
thing too about. Go ahead.
That's one of those things that, especially in Western society, we don't really get grief, and grief is very, very confusing. Grief is not just one thing, and everyone experiences it differently. And there are so many aspects of grief, and it's not the same for everyone. But we get a lot of not helpful societal cues about grief. It's from the very first time when we experience grief as kids, it's oh, well, your dog died. Well, you know what? We'll get you a dog. Or your child died. Well, you know what? You can have another child. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with your relationship with what you lost. And I was saying something to Chris earlier this week. There's this saying, don't cry over spilled milk. And this is kind of a silly way to say it, but, yeah, that is something we say. But the bottom line is, what is your relationship to that milk? If you had a really, really strong relationship to the idea that you were going to have that glass of milk that was, I don't know, maybe it was organic, and you had been trying to cook those cookies forever, and you just finally had that perfect glass of milk and you lost it, then that's different. That's not just a regular glass of milk. So it's really, what is it personally to you? How does it make you feel?
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. I mean, as far as, because grief is also magnified in many, many different ways. We have another guest that has been sitting here for a while. You guys may have seen him in the list, but ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Jelly Bean to the house? What's up, man?
Jelly Bean.
Welcome.
What's
That's
up,
a bad
Jim?
man right there. That's a bad man.
How you doing?
So,
Happy New Year, everybody.
Crowd roars.
Yeah.
New Year, bro.
So, so Jelly Bean, I know you've kind of been, you've been going through it this past year too. and you've had some losses that have been pretty public out on Facebook. And I know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but also talk about, you know, how you've kind of been dealing with it personally, dealing with some of that grief and dealing with, you know, in your daily life.
Yeah, it's hard, bro. You know, we lost our son back in April, and the struggle's real. You know, my family's totally broken, man. So every day's a struggle. Every day's you know, every day's different, but every day is a struggle. So, you know, and it's different for me, you know, because I've dealt with this all my life. You know, going back to, you know, my brother. I lost a brother when he was 13 years old. So, and I've been through it between my mom, my grandma, and you know, different family members and stuff. But now, you know, you never get used to it. You never, you know, there ain't no school that you can go to for this type of grief. So you just, you know, you try to maintain it. You try to be there for your family. And now it's hard now with all the strife that we got going on in the world with the pandemic and the racial injustice and all that stuff. So it's hard, but we just try to keep it moving, you know.
Do you feel that there's some approaches to how you're handling it that works better than others? I mean, I know that, you know, both Tony and Morris have said they've stayed busy, and Garrett said it too. You know, part of it's just kind of in putting yourself in the music. And I know you do a lot of playing. You sit in with a lot of different bands. Do you find that's really the best thing for you?
Yeah, music is healing, man. I'm in the process now. I'm in the infant stages of trying to start a museum around here. The Minneapolis Sound Museum thing. I'm trying to do that, and, you know, getting people on board with that is in the infant stages. And yeah, you know, my family kind of gets on me about sitting in all the time and stuff, but you know, Chris, you know, I got that bug, man. You know, I'm not happy unless I'm beating the hell out of some drums or my guitar is turned up to 11. So, you know, so that helps. Music is healing. I always tell all my friends, and music is healing. You know?
Yeah, I think that's a common thread that everybody here has, is that, you know, they kind of felt like, you know, that music is just so insanely important for people. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, to kind of go what Rob said, you know, as far as, you know, your perspective of how things work out, you know, it's hard to accept losses. But one of the things that a quote that I had actually written down by John Piper that said, God is always doing 10,000 things in your life, and you may only be aware of 3 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
And so even though you're kind of in the middle of everything and you're really feeling like there's, you know, the weight of the world on you, and that you don't feel like you're going to make it out the other side, you know, you can. And it's all done through just focus, as Dwan said, focusing on God, focusing on, you know, prayer, and just getting your head in a scenario where God is never going to give you more than you can't handle. So you just have to keep moving forward.
Yeah, you have to believe that. Yeah.
And I think piggybacking off of what Mr. Page said about all of us living in our bubbles, right? I think America got caught with our pants down.
Oh yeah,
yeah, we did.
Right? Yeah, we got caught with our pants down, meaning like
and our underwear down.
There's meaning like today there's no such thing as community.
Yeah,
no.
Everyone is about themselves. Had this pandemic hit in the 80s, we would have all locked arms, regardless of our differences.
Right. Right.
It would have been different.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting a reality check about what's more important. Is it things or is it your fellow man?
Yeah.
Because
It's
today
also a little bit about vulnerability, right?
Absolutely.
Like that when people say, "How are you doing?" to be honest.
Right.
And
Exactly.
you know, "Oh, what can I do for you?" Tell them.
Right. Right.
Don't just say, "I'll let you know."
And then trust.
It's
and
like,
trust.
how you doing? I'm fine.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm not fine.
Right. And then trust the process. Trust the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know, trust the bigger good, the greater good. No one's doing that today. Not for the most part.
That's true.
That's
You know,
why
one of the things that we
are
were talking
now.
about just a minute ago, we were talking about music. I just, one of the things I've been doing, trying to deal with my issues, is I tend to read a lot anyway, but there's this great book that Oprah Winfrey wrote with a doctor named Bruce Perry, and it's called What Happened to You.
Mhm.
And one of the things they talk about is that it's about trauma and how early trauma really affects you throughout your whole life. But one of the things it talks about what are the things you can do, or what things help you deal with that trauma. And for any of us that have had children, you know that when they're a baby, if they're having challenges, if they're crying, if you can rock them in a certain rhythm, then you can calm them down. And that is actually a very, very basic part of our brain. And music and rhythm actually do help us, regardless of whether we're children or adults. It gets to the very, very basic part of that, what they call lizard brain, where it soothes you and it gets you to calm down. And that's one of the things about music that really, really affects us all. That rhythm, and it's scientifically proven that this helps people. And so, using music therapy, using just rhythmic activities, dance, or playing an instrument or whatever.
Drumming circles.
Drumming, yes, it really, really is a very effective way to just get you back to that basic of being a human being.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting that you said that, because music today doesn't bring us together.
You're right. It doesn't.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no soul in
It
it.
divides us. There's no harmonic content to it.
There's no soul in it.
There's no color.
Right.
One of my I'm still inspired by this guy today, and I'm looking right at him today with these big frame black glasses on, sitting at the top of the screen.
Right.
This guy, man, like being in his studio off of 3rd and Lake, and you wake up in the morning and his cat is sitting in there, man, with these long ass fingers, just layering, and just layering. Dude, me and Kip just had this conversation that producers don't even create like that anymore.
Right.
That's ancient. How he creates is ancient. It's like it's a dying art. It's going away. So what does that say about? And music is huge. It plays so much within the community. So if that's the case, that's one of the main driving forces to why there is no community today, because you don't have real art on the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Something happened.
And to add, go ahead.
Once again, we got caught with our pants down.
It's not just music either. That's artistically all the way around the board. Is what I'm talking about. Like the whole world is lacking soul right now. Days that we keep talking about were good. The 80s, the 70s, and even the 90s, we still had soul. Everybody still had soul. There was a little soul in the music. There was still a little soul in the community. There was still a little soul in the art. There's no soul in it anymore.
The funny thing is too, it's very interesting, because as a society, we are living in the most narcissistic times in human history. When we talk about everything, it's about the selfie, it's about me, it's about, and the other part of it is the sheer and utter greed that exists in the world. And I think it's just lunacy that when we look at the situation with the world, I mean, I'm not trying not to deviate from the topic that we're on here, but I think it's important that people really understand the gravity of the situation that we find ourselves with the environment, with mental health. All of these things are connected. As I watch, the earth, I can't really say that the earth is deteriorating. What happens is we as stewards of the planet are allowing it to go in a direction that's counter to our well-being. The earth has gone through a lot of different things over the millions of years that it's been here. So what will happen is we'll create a condition that's not really great for us, and the world will just get rid of us. We're the only species really on the planet that if you kill us off, the planet will actually do better. Everything else, if you kill the bees, we got 1 year to live. If the bees live, 1 year. That's true.
Yeah, no, you're right. The planet's gonna keep going. I mean, we're gonna
The
be the ones
planet will
gonna
keep
kill
moving.
ourselves.
It'll just snuff us out. We got that situation, therein lies the problem. So we have to, there's a collective consciousness. And I'm sitting here looking at the Justice League of just musicians. I got Jelly Bean. I got Tony. And brother Garrett, I knew your dad, man. Gary Scheider was one of my heroes, man.
Yes,
It's like
sir.
I played with Maceo for some years, and Fred and all of them, and George, and so man, Amp Fiddler, all them cats, man. These are all my dudes from back,
Changed my
Steve
life,
Curtis.
man. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Word up, y'all.
we have all of these skill sets that we still know and we still have. We just got, it's just everything's a cyclical kind of thing. Is we on this, like, look at the music like a big giant turntable, and it's like the needle's over here, but it's all coming back around. And we have to just take the skill sets that we've learned from Prince and we've learned from George and James and Sly, and we can still do these things. Jelly Bean is one of the greatest musicians in the game. This dude can play all kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And we have to combine our skill sets and save the world. We got to look at ourselves like these superheroes, because we got to do something. And we only can do it by what Juan was saying. We got to work together. We got to just understand that the consciousness is damaged, and we have to inject principles that we know to be productive, and that we know to be something that's going to be of an improvement to society. And I think that's what we have to do. With the skill sets that we have, because we're running out of time, folks. I mean,
Absolutely.
once this shelf breaks down,
Absolutely.
we're going to be in a world of trouble. And we're talking about short order. We're not talking about 100 years from now.
Absolutely.
We're talking about 10 years.
Facts.
10 years.
Right in our face right now, bro.
Preach, Mo. Preach.
Facts. Facts.
So we have to absolutely. We have to understand that the urgency of the situation, and then correlate to we all work together, and we all do something together, be a voice that can change it. Because, man, I'm telling you, the alternative is not good, folks.
Nope.
No, you're
The thing
right.
that's
Music
going
is healing, and rhythm is healing. That's what it came from.
Yeah, what were we gonna say, Jeff?
That
I'm
was
sorry.
our connection.
The thing that's going to put this into a better perspective or send us in the direction is the one thing that I don't think it's been mentioned yet, because we've been talking about a lot of things, and that is honesty. Because we've got to start becoming very honest with who we are and what we're doing in order to be able to bring these things out. Like a session like this, for example, it's bringing out a humbleness and honesty. And now it's like, hey, wait a second, this is what we need to do. I would live in the studio day and night, always creating. And my daughter passed, and all these things happened, and people are getting crazy. And suddenly I found I don't want to be in the studio. Like, I can't get my creative juices going. Like, when I get in there, when I sit down in front of my board or in front of my guitar or my whatever instrument I'm sitting in front of, nothing happens. And so then I had to jump out and say, okay, well, let's be honest. Am I going to the studio because that's my default and that's what I'm used to, or is that what my body needs? Because I'm going through something, we're changing, and you change when things happen. And I found all of a sudden, okay, let's not worry about creating. And I would just thump and make noise, or just, play an instrument without a direction or a path. Or I have other projects with obligations. So how do I get my creative juices? Well, stop trying to be creative and let your body flow. It's just like Morris said, it's a kinetic energy. Everything is energy. And if we continue to block it by trying to make ourselves be, do, or affect something, it's not going to flow. We have to relax and let things happen. And the true us will come out. And then all of a sudden, creativity comes back. Meeting the people that you need to meet come into play, because things start aligning once you put yourself out there in the universe. So I think this session and this moment is where things will start to change. And like you said, like people need to come together and create the music that we listen to. Oh, that's tearing us down, tearing us apart. The frequencies, everything is just tearing us apart. We're not resonating. We're not vibrating properly. But once you start becoming honest and feeling and letting it go, believe me, those things will happen. So I think we're in a good position to affect the change. It's just the change. It's just a matter of people coming together and starting it, and then it will grow from there. But it won't happen until it comes from an honest place, not just a showman's place or anything else. It's got to come from an honest place. That's what I like to say.
And Yoshiko, you kind of been sitting quiet for a while there. You are our licensed professional actually in here. Jen stepped away for a moment, but what do you kind of what's some of your takeaways, some of your advice for some of the folks here? And you're muted. I can see you on the mute side there. Yeah. What are some good takeaways for people who are kind of still in that loss state of grief?
I think that everything that everybody has been saying has really been awesome, because it goes back to what I was saying earlier, as far as, really finding your rhythm, really finding what is it that you need to do in order to cope. And when that thing isn't working, such as what Jeff was just talking about, then you learn to migrate and you learn something else. So I really do believe that each individual has the ability to foster that coping. And if they don't, then, like I think you said, her name was Jen, the other LPC was talking about, just finding other resources that may be helpful for you, because every person is going to find their own rhythm in going through grief or depression. One thing that I thought about as Jeff was talking about the whole honesty piece was that when we were doing music conferences, people come to a music conference, they want to meet the musicians, they want to meet everybody who is behind the scenes, they want to become the next whatever, celebrity. But we started with a mental health and a health portion, and people had to be ushered in. To be honest, Jeff was actually the usher in. Jeff would usher the people in, because nobody wants to come to a music conference and talk about mental health. I mean, who wants to do that? And I found that, when the people actually came in and started talking, you will find that people actually relate to mental health a lot, because as we talked about, the stigma that's attached to mental health. And one thing that I just want to let all the listeners know, we do want to stop with the stigma when it comes to mental health. All of us have some level of mental health. If you think about a ruler starts with 0 and it goes to 12. You just have to figure out where you are on that ruler. Some people may only stay between the 0 and 1 part of it, meaning that they have the skills, they have the coping in order to tackle depression or anxiety, or any of the other symptoms that may come about. But then people are maybe around the 10 or 11, and those are the people that normally will go and seek some type of treatment to help with their mental health. So I want to make that very clear that please don't think that because you are reaching out to loved ones, you're leaning on family, or you are going into an office to see a therapist for anything that you're dealing with. And also, therapy is not just for when you're going through something. Sometimes you just need to just kind of have that unbiased person. That's one thing that someone told me. They just wanted to come in to just have a non-biased somebody that they can talk to about just some things that they just was experiencing. So I'm hoping that I'm kind of answering your question, but I know that those are some things that I really wanted to get out, because when I'm going out and I'm speaking to individuals about mental health, one thing that I really don't like is when someone in the celebrity world goes through something. And the first thing that you see in the comment section is, oh, mental illness is real, or, they say things like that. And it just makes me just want to just throw my phone when I see things like that, because with those type of stigma is what keeps people from really being honest about what they're going through. So
yeah, I think that's really important, because that's one of the reasons why I invited so many guests on today, is because I wanted us regular folk to be able to see that it's not just you going through it. You can have all levels of a successful career, and you are not immune to depression. You're not immune to any of this stuff, and it's real, and it happens to everyone. Jen, is there a specific, this is for Jen, our other professional in the mix. Is that Jen? Is that
Sorry.
your dog?
You get to hear a little bit from our.
That's a good coping mechanism.
Thank you for bringing. Thank you for a little injection of levity. I appreciate it. Yeah. Is there a specific resource that you would send people to? Like, I just did a scroll on the bottom to the National Depression Hotline, which is obviously like a blanket type of scenario. Is there a specific place that you go to that you would tell people to go to?
Lord.
Your house.
Beyond your local pet rescue. Believe it or not, Psychology Today, which started out as a real pop psychology magazine probably 20, 25 years ago, has some really good resources online. They also have a ton of available therapists that you can reach out to. And every single magazine that you run across, or if you go to their website, they're going to have lots of other links. There's also NAMI, which is the www.nami.org, which is the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. There's also NIM, which is the National Institute of Mental Health .gov, actually, and that's a great resource for.
Now, do you think there's a stigma when you say, because immediately when people hear mental health and mental health illness, it's like, okay, I'm kind of feeling a little bit of grief. I'm kind of feeling a little bit of, I'm feeling some kind of way, but I don't want to be categorized as mental health illness. Can you kind of remove that stigma, as far as, I don't know why they titled it that way. It seems kind of abrupt, I guess, but
actually in Arizona, they refer to it, in a lot of other places in the country, they've started referring to it as behavioral health, and for that very reason, to take that stigma away. And one of the things that I tell people when they come in is, okay, mental health, but the organ in your body that's affected is your brain. That's no different than your heart being affected, or your lungs being affected, or your liver. It just happens to be your brain, and so we call it mental. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're ill. It means that your health is not at an optimal level. And so we'd like to do what we can to get it to an optimal level, so that you feel more successful in your life, and that you feel more satisfied. In a broader sense, the World Health Organization calls it subjective well-being. And because there are so many different cultural standards about what makes you happy or what makes you unhappy. And that begins to incorporate all kinds of things like housing and poverty and access to resources and employment, and all of those things that can also factor into a person's wellness or sense of anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
What's really funny about that is, it's really changed so much since I was a kid, and it's becoming more accepted. And I was talking to one of my kids, Tristan, about this, and I think we've talked about him before, or them before, and they're able to have opportunities to adjust for their disability within the schooling system, but it's not necessarily as available for those of us who are in the work world. And I'm struggling with this now because, I had a very tragic recent loss, and it really affected some other underlying conditions I have. And as someone who grew up during a period when this wasn't something that was really acceptable, I mean, this was, nobody talked about this then. It's really been a struggle for me to ask for the accommodations that I need, and to feel like I'm a productive part of society when, I've been basically a productive part of society for all my life. And it's really interesting to be in this time now when we're slowly getting there, but we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, and I think that, to kind of add on to that, and Jellybean, I'll kind of bring you in on this. And Morris, you kind of hinted at it a little bit, as far as the stigma surrounding it and how society kind of views it. Because I think Michael Che has started to talk more about the fact in the Black community that mental health is not something that wasn't even talked about publicly.
Yeah, it was taboo.
It was just taboo.
Right.
It was just
Taboo.
like,
Yeah.
that's just so and so. It's he has a whole.
Yeah.
You're
a sucker for that. You don't need that.
Yeah.
Right. It's just it's just it's just he's crazy. He just likes to
that's
walk
not
around.
crazy.
Yeah, you don't need nothing. You don't need to see nobody.
Yeah, right. He just
And
likes
if
to
I-
walk around in circles.
It was just this thing that just made it like you're not masculine. If you got to, you got to be able to tough it out and all of this kind of terminology. Like you're a punk. You're a punk if you don't do this. And
Yeah.
it's
I
like,
will
man,
say too, it can. I'm sorry, just to say, it also was. I feel like when I was younger, it almost felt like a thing that I remember older people saying, like, that's something white folks do. Y'all, we don't do that. Or we don't pray. Or it was, but there was those things that we don't do that. That's white folks thing.
Another thing too that also coincides with we cannot allowed to cry in our communities. We have to be tough. We're not allowed to be vulnerable. All of those things that essentially drive you into some kind of mental kind of disarray. All those kinds of things are taboo in our communities. We just have to tough everything out. We're not allowed to speak on it. We're not allowed to, not allowed to
brother.
just you're not allowed to feel any way vulnerable. You just have
and you know what? The other thing that happens in that scenario is that, I always used to wonder in the United States when it comes to race and it comes to the treatment of persons of color and race, is that the only way that when you think of some of the horrific things that have happened to people of color in this country over the years, you think, how can anybody treat another human in this manner? How can you do such a thing? Well, the first thing is you have to not see them as human. And so when you take these things, when we talk about mental health, if you talk about, just throw it to the side, or that's something for white folks, and if you're not getting the proper mental care, you can't then on the other hand say, these people are like animals. They just because you it's a systemic thing that happens. So you don't go get mental health. That's the one thing that if you're a paraplegic, the one thing you need to work is your brains. That's the thing that's going to motor all of it. Thank you, Miss Alyssa. That's the thing that's driving the whole thing is your mind and your brains. And so if you've already given it a situation where you're not giving any attention to that, one of your most major components that you need in order to work, in order to live, well then, man, you're just a vegetable. And I think everything in life is balanced, man. And it's just like when you find out that when you can do better, then we have to do better. And we do have to, you do need mental help sometimes. You do need these types of things in order to like get on the same footing as everybody else, so that you can get your mental health good and get your mental state good. And so I think that's something that we have to learn, that as Black people and people of color, No, it ain't just for white folks or just for folks with money or just. It's like anybody can
Yeah.
use some mental
Preach, Mo. Yep. Absolutely.
mental help. And just
Absolutely.
need something like that, man. I just think that's just, and once everybody realizes that's the case and everybody can be serviced, then I think society will benefit from it.
Absolutely.
I think society could use a therapist. I think most
Right.
of society could use a therapist.
Yeah.
Look, like
Straight
what
up.
you want to say?
Yeah.
Straight up though.
Straight
That
up.
I'm telling you,
Right.
especially where we at now, man. I think
Wow.
what I think is these stigmas that we're talking about that we've been kind of living all these years. I think where we're at now is kind of an end result of us kind of bottling it in all of these years. That's what I think it is.
It's cause and effect, brother. Cause
Yes,
and effect.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And now
Yeah,
the
I mean-
whole world needs a shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And to that extent, would you I guess I'll ask Yoshiko this question. Do you feel like it's important for individuals of color to see specifically a Black psychologist, somebody that can actually, that is aware of all the, I mean, because obviously there's things that we just experience differently, and that's just unfortunately the way of the world. Do you think it's a good idea for people of color to see a Black psychologist?
I do, and a lot of times I am sought out for that reason, because what I've been told is that they want to go to someone that looks like them, who potentially would understand the traumas and different things of
And
that sort.
circumstances. Yeah.
Especially being 20 years in the counseling field, where I've worked with in community mental health. So, we go out into the homes and we provide mental health services to adults and children. So it's definitely, some of the things that some of you were talking about, that, it is taboo. You do have, you go in there to work with the kid who's having some behavioral problems, and you have the parents who's kind of looking from the other room, giving them the eyes, to not say anything, to be quiet, but yet you're asking for help, but you really don't want the help. And what I find is that, when we put white counselors into the home, they had a very hard time because of, certain trust level. They weren't sure, if they were going to come in and remove the children, or they felt that, if they told them that they were experiencing any types of hallucinations, that they would be hospitalized. So I think that for some people, not all, that many Black people may seek other Black professionals, even down to medication management. I've had some clients tell me that they don't want to see certain other race or cultures. They only want to see a Black psychiatrist to prescribe them meds. So it's definitely, a preference that I have seen in my experience.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic. I think that's a fantastic point, because I guess I never really thought of that. Obviously, because I'm a white guy.
What?
Believe it or not.
Very. Here we
But
go.
yeah, so
Wow,
yeah,
I had no idea.
Wow.
I know it's a shocker.
Could have fooled me.
But it's one of those scenarios where you look at the stigma of it in white culture. What I mean, I guess I'll ask Jelly Bean, what because I mean I know you've been going through a lot with the loss of your son recently. Do you feel like there's a stigma with seeing a mental health professional in the Black community, as from your
Well,
perception?
I personally, from my family, we have a Black one, because I mean, just because we should, considering what we go through around here and stuff. But yeah, I do.
Yeah. Morris, what do you think about that?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just. Do you feel like there is a stigma in the Black community about seeing mental health professionals? I know that from
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I think definitely there's a stigma. I think it's opening up somewhat. I think so, but I do think that there's still that thing, and maybe in some cases peer pressure, maybe in some cases you just all of the stuff you've been told is just, solidified in your mind, and you just are cool with just keeping the status quo. But I'm here to tell you that I know personally from my own experience that you can benefit from it. And a lot of times people just think, well, I'm a pretty smart guy, and these are trained professionals, man. And they've been trained to notice certain things, to reason out certain things. And I think sometimes it just takes that different perspective to come to an understanding of what, some of the things that you may not be checking for, you know what I mean? And so I'm all about, Prince used to tell me all the time, he said, like, anything that I didn't do good, to do well, he said, Morris, if you don't do that well, get somebody who does, and get them to do it. Why are you going to try to play some drums raggedy? Call Jelly Bean. Just get him to do it. And he's good at it, then get him to do it.
Boy,
Don't do it just so you can say you did
boy,
it. And then
he'd
be
break it
raggedy,
down, wouldn't he?
just
He'd
toe
break
up.
it down to you.
It's just like, oh man, Prince will break it off. He'll tell you
He'd
like
break
this.
you off.
Don't,
Yes, sir.
don't even go there. Just get it done right, man.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so go to somebody who knows something about this. They're professionals. They understand it, and so that's what you do. And it makes sense to me, man. It makes sense to me, and I'm not going to waste time trying to sit here and self-analyze and do a bunch of things like that. But I did that for years, and the fact that I could go and talk to somebody, it really lifted a lot off of myself. Man, there's a lot of things that I know personally I'd like to fix about myself, and I think when you can articulate that to somebody, just so that it can help you find the tools to do that. And it's a process, man. You don't go for a couple of sessions.
No.
It's just like going to work out, man. You go to the gym. You don't go over there, press a few pounds. You like check your muscles already. Like, yeah. No, it takes
No, don't work like that,
man. It don't work like that. It's a process, and you have to go in, and you have to go through it. You have to talk to them, and you run into some roadblocks, and it's just like anything else. And it plateaus sometimes, and you just keep working, and that's how you get through things. That's how you build up something. And so, and if it's not the right person, find somebody else. It's just like a restaurant. I had a dentist one time, gave me some of the best advice in the world. He said, I had bad experiences as a kid here in the South, in the country. We had like a dentist that he sucked, but everybody went to him, and it's like, you didn't care. And it's like, he was terrible. This dude was terrible. And I didn't like dentists because of him. And I was living in Chicago, and I went to the dentist, and I told the dude, I said, hey, man, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not feeling the dental stuff. I'm not feeling you. And he said, Mr. Hayes, let me ask you a question. He said, when you go to McDonald's, you get a bad sandwich. Do you stop eating, or do you find somewhere else to go?
Well,
He said, so you don't stop eating if you get a raggedy sandwich down at the McDonald's. You just go somewhere else.
Someplace else. Exactly.
He said, I'm a great dentist, and I'm going to look out for you. And that dude he fixed my mouth. He hooked me up. And that's the thing that I think some of us do. We get a bad experience with one person and think that's the end all be all. And it's like, and that made I'm all about common sense, just like logical common sense. And he made it in such a way that he said, yeah, you're going to stop eating that just because you went to McDonald's and it sucks, you go eat somewhere else. And he says, find somebody good that can service what you need. And I think that's what we have to do, instead of like stopping it once we have a bad experience or something that you don't find optimal. I think then if you can just say, let me find somebody else that may be more in tune. It's just like anything else in life. You find a place that you like to eat. You find a place that you like to go, a nice church. There's a church on every corner around here. But people have to find a church home. That's what I say. Welcome to our church home. You got to find a place that resonates with you and that you like and that you enjoy. And once you do that, then you're more apt to, even a band, even the people you in the band with, it's like a little marriage, man. You got to be with these folks. Ain't nothing worse than being in a band with people you don't like. You don't want to do that.
Truth.
So you got to find the right combination in the right situation in order to move yourself forward and to move the situation forward, I think.
Yeah, well, one of the things we wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that we were also, motivational and inspirational as we kind of get towards it. And so I'm going to come to each one of you, and hopefully you will have a motivational. Michael, I see you got your hand raised. I'm going to let you speak. I'm sorry.
Just real quick, because I don't know if we really touched on this as well, but just if one of the specialists could speak on anxiety. Like, I think a lot of people go through heavy anxiety. Me being one, so I'm here for my session, but it's a serious thing. I mean, for whatever, it could be job, or it could be family stuff, it could be relationships. But I know I can speak from experience. Sometimes that can be crippling, man. And when it starts to kind of get the best of you, and you start self-doubting yourself. And I think now, since we are so connected through this, and we're connected tonight, maybe it's an opportunity to let people know, hey, you feeling like that too? So am I. Like, you're not in this by yourself, as they said earlier. But if someone could speak on anxiety, that's what I was going to ask.
Man, anytime I step to a microphone, man, I still feel all that same anxiety. You know what I'm saying? Don't y'all for 1 minute think that anxiety is not common amongst a lot of us, man. But I mean, just for one example, but I 100% agree with what you're saying there, Michael. Anxiety for me is probably one of my biggest issues is anxiety.
But what are you anxious about?
Just a lot of things, having to make decisions, you know what I mean? Just having to make decisions about things, you know what I mean?
So it's just like a broad
Yeah,
anxiety.
it's
That's
broad
just
anxiety. Yeah,
Yeah,
the bigger the decision, you know, the bigger the situation you have to face. You know, I have an anxiety about I have a social anxiety. You know what I mean? I'm not really good socializing around people, and sometimes it terrifies me. Just the thought of having to socialize with people that I've never socialized with before terrifies me to the point where you might, you know what? I got something else I got to do. Just came up, man.
You know,
man. Anxiety is real.
You know, one of the things I found when it comes to feeling anxiety and just getting those feelings, a lot of it is directly related to, again, what society's taught us to always put a certain face forward. How will I look to someone else? So you're so worried about how do I look, and how is the if I do this, and then you start getting more nervous because you're thinking about yourself. How do I look? Who's looking at me? And one of the things I decided to do, this is years ago, is I was also doing stand-up comedy. And I decided I would do heavy stand-up comedy and improv to get myself, like the social thing, for example, people who at the events that we'll go to, I look like, hey, he's out there talking to everybody, but on the inside, I'm screaming. I'm just like, ugh. You know, before I go to an event, I got to go to the bathroom first. You know.
Well, yeah, Yoshiko, you actually deal with entertainers specifically in some of the counseling and stuff that you do. So, kind of speaking to the anxiety that Garrett's talking about, that Michael's talking about, from an entertainment perspective, what are some specific things that you would say to somebody who's a performer or that has some type of is in the public eye like these gentlemen are? How would they what's some things that you could say to them to help them overcome their anxiety? I think she's anxious.
So
Frozen with anxiety.
So I would say social anxiety, you would be. Can you hear me?
You cut out for a second.
Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Am I here? Am I here?
You're here. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, you're here. No, go ahead.
Am I frozen?
We hear you.
No, you're freezing. We can hear you.
All right. You hear? Okay. All right. I'm gonna try to make this brief because I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, good. Okay, good. So, surprisingly, a lot of entertainers talk about having that social anxiety, which was when I started hearing about it, I was like, what? Like you get on that stage and you just, just throw down, and everything. But what, they tell me is that sometimes what they do is they just kind of focus on like one place in the venue. And so therefore they're kind of like, zoning out of other individuals. And then something that we don't often talk about, which some people don't like to talk about, is cannabis. Sometimes the use of cannabis, kind of helps to decrease some of those nerves and anxiety. To each their own. I'm not going to advocate one way or
Can
the
you write
other,
me a prescription, Doc?
but a lot of
If it's
times,
legal in your state,
motivation,
Doc, can you
doing some
write
of
me a
those breathing
prescription?
techniques.
CBD.
Right. So CBD, right.
Mhm.
Doing those breathing techniques, meditation, grounding, some of those things would be very useful, prior to maybe going into that environment that you find to become more stressful.
yeah, and Jennifer, I know that you actually do talk quite a bit about meditation. I know that's something that Rob spends a lot of time with is focusing on meditation. Is meditation pretty much your like first go-to when you're talking to somebody who has a good bit of anxiety?
It certainly is one of the first things that I discuss with them because it has so many benefits. The thing that actually has the greatest benefit for anxiety over everything else in terms of scientific information is animals. So, lots of people are getting emotional support animals, psychiatric service animals, and taking them along with them, and that helps a great deal. When I have clients with anxiety that have to go out and maybe professionally do performances or whatnot, a couple of things that I help them with is that number one, everybody in the audience wants you to do well. They're there to see a good show. They're there to see a good performance. They're there to see a good presentation. No one wants you to fall on your face. And everybody's there, not putting pressure on you, but just waiting and supporting you. And if you can kind of tell yourself in your head that that's what this is about, they're all there to support you. And to remember that you never want to spend more than 5 minutes right now on something that's not going to matter 5 years from now. And so, just doing that breathing that Shiko talked about is important. And to understand that, the kind of this too shall pass. Most emotional states passed within 20 minutes. We think it's going to last forever, but it doesn't. And so if we can just kind of allow ourselves to sit through that moment and know that it's likely to pass and we'll get to the other side of it, that does tend to help quite a bit.
Yeah,
What?
I meditate probably 2 to 3 times a day, and I've been meditating since I was 16. And there's so many different ways to do it, and there's no really right or wrong way to do it. So, if you feel weird about doing it, I would say just try it. And if you're if you're like concerned about how to do it, there's like apps out there that you can try, and just try
Yeah.
them and see. I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
for a long time, I did all my meditations, completely on my own, and then Jen got the Calm app, and I started using that. And the guided meditations I found really helped me. They helped push me forward. And honestly, there are days when I will meditate 4, 5, 6 times a day.
I wish we had that time.
Right.
Well, it's 10 minutes. I mean, who doesn't have 10 minutes here or there?
Yeah,
to
not
just
well.
throw in.
I got 10 minutes, but not times 6.
Well, yeah, but just even one or two really makes a big difference, and
Yeah.
it just depends on how much my brain is just going off the rails, and
Right.
it really gives you an opportunity to reconnect with yourself. And like Jen said, that's the biggest thing that I've gotten from it is that nothing lasts for very long. You can sit there and go, oh my God, the world is ending, and you're feeling these horrible feelings inside yourself. But if you take a few minutes to like focus on your breathing and focus on anything else, you'll realize, oh, everything is temporary.
Yeah.
Everything is impermanent. And so these feelings that are making you feel like nothing will ever change and nothing will ever be better, they'll go away.
Yeah,
and there's a phrase that I use with my clients about anxiety because you get that idea that you just want to hide from it, that fight or flight, right? And so what I tell them is this, that when you hide from your fear, you make it grow. And when you face it, you make it go. And it's counterintuitive. You think if I face up to my anxiety, I'm going to get overwhelmed and it's going to be worse, but it's not. Carol Burnett was, one of the most famous entertainers of our time. She had a horrible stage fright, terrible social anxiety. So at the start of every show, she would turn up all the house lights and walk around and talk to the whole audience so that she wouldn't have panic attacks during your show.
Wow.
And there are a lot of performers that will go out and look at the venue with all the lights on and everything for a few minutes before they even let people in, so that they kind of know what they're in for, because it's like, okay, it's just a building. There's just seats there. I can go out there. I can do this. Athletes that go out that I work with and get, they get frozen or they get mind kind of blanks on what they're doing. I'll say to them, look, you just got to go out there and do what you know how to do. You know how to do this. You've done it 100 times before. You just go out there and do what you know how to do to the best of your ability. And sometimes it's going to be better than others.
Yeah, and I think Rob made a good point that, there are apps that you can get for your phone. There's an app called Calm. I actually have a virtual reality headset, one of the Quest ones or whatever, and they actually have apps in there. There's one app called Trip, TRIPP.
Yeah.
It's like really inexpensive. It's like $10, but it's actually a meditation app. It like puts you can be sitting in the middle of your living room, but it will like put you like by a flowing river in the middle of these, mystic woods. And it just kind of takes you and puts you in another place to kind of help with that process. If you're not really good with, moving forward with your imagination and just kind of making that happen, because meditation is a very, very difficult thing to get into and to actually be, I'm trying to think of the word, I guess, committed enough to the process, because if you can't get into it, it's so hard to do. But
one of the things I would like to say about that is that part of the issue is that so many people get caught up in, oh, am I doing this right? Or, oh, I'm messing this up, or whatever. And it doesn't matter, because it's just the process of doing it. It's like playing an instrument. When you start to play an instrument, you don't get, I play the drums. So, you are not going to hit on every single note. You are not going to get the rhythm right every single time. But you just keep doing
unless you're
it.
Jelly Bean.
Unless you're Jelly Bean.
You're right. But the thing is that you just keep doing it. If you sit there and if you sit there and say to yourself, oh, crap, I'm doing this wrong, I'm never going to get it right, you're never going to get it right. But if you say, hey, you know what? I missed that, but I'll just keep doing it. It's just the practice of it. Just the practice of it itself actually helps, regardless of how well you do it. You just try it.
Hey, Chris, there's also one other thing I want to mention, and I'm glad that went the way it went, because Rob mentioned meditating sometimes throughout the day, 10 times a day, or whatever, throughout the day.
I haven't gotten that far yet, but 6 is all right.
Well, the point was, Chris, your first reaction was, I don't have time. And see, that's the problem, because you actually do have time. It's just like when someone says, I don't have the money, but yet they're still buying things. It's a matter of setting the priority, making the decision, and doing it. And yes, it may not be an hour long. A meditation, just like you said, isn't about an hour long every time, but it is a matter of being committed to doing something. So if you stop to just breathe for 3 minutes, just to control your breathing, you're doing it already.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's the key. We've got to get out of the mentality of, oh, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. We just got to set the priority and make yourself do it. And before you know it, then you are doing, you find yourself doing that all day and not realizing it. And it hasn't interrupted the regular life and the people that are looking out for you or rely on you for things. So it's the mentality that we have to work on as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying to yourself, I don't have time to eat, or I don't have time to sleep. And we all do that. But when you take the time to eat, when you take time to sleep, you're taking care of yourself
You feel better.
and you feel better.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same concept. It's take the time to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's, and that's a positive, a positive way to look at it. And, and Jeff, when I was referring to the time, I was referring to the time 6 part. the time 6 part was a tough part for me, but I probably do have that time at some point. I was thinking about this before. One of the things that I had to start doing was I had to start deleting apps off of my phone, because deleting the Angry Birds and deleting stuff, all those games, because the time that you spend playing those types of things are times that you can utilize to better yourself.
Right.
And to kind of put yourself into a better position, whether it's learning a new language, whether it's meditating, whether it's whatever. So what I want to do here, though, to kind of close things out, because I want to be respectful of everybody's time here, is that I wanted to make sure that what we were doing here tonight was going to be motivational and inspirational. And so I jotted down some motivational and inspirational quotes. And I'm going to kind of go around the room. I'll start with Michael, and then I'll go to Dewan and Jelly Bean, and just kind of tell me a motivational quote or something inspirational quote that you heard. Maybe it was a friend or somebody that you cross paths with in your life, some piece of advice that somebody gave to you that has really kind of helped you develop in positive attributes. But here's some examples of some that are pretty great. I already told you about the John Piper one, the God is always doing 10,000 things in your life, and you may only be aware of 3 of them. One that's really, really powerful is one by Henry Ford. And I think this is, it's very Yoda-like. And I imagine this is probably where Star Wars got it. But Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Right.
That's huge. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So, and it kind of goes to this next quote by Laird Hamilton: make sure your worst enemy doesn't live between your ears.
Wow.
Because your mindset and the way that you feel about things and the way that you react to things that you can't change, that you don't have any control over, that only God has control over, you have to figure out a way to be able to come to grips with whatever that thing is. And if you let your brain take you to those dark places and you let your mind kind of drag you into that depression, it becomes more and more difficult to get out. But luckily there are licensed professionals out there like Jennifer and like Yoshiko that can help you. And so, those are really positive things, but those are just some minor quotes. I mean, there's plenty of other quotes that I have here, and I'll start posting some on the Facebook page. But Michael, we'll start with you. What is a quote or an inspirational thing that you've probably heard in your life that has really kind of made a difference for you?
One, I don't know if this will sound corny or not, but I'm a big believer in when I hear certain things, particularly when I was younger, and if they resonate with me, and I will say these mantras or whatever throughout life when I'm going through stuff.
Right.
And one that I say, I'm gonna have to go to, y'all gonna know who this is. Save me, Jesus, I've been a fool. How could I forget that you are the rule? You are my God. I'm your child. From now on, for you, I shall be wild. I shall be quick. I shall be strong. That's the type of shit that I say when I'm dealing stuff on a day-to-day level, and I know it's about to, here we go with the funny stuff. I'll stop for a second. And, we say certain things through life. There's a lot of rap things I could say too that they do get me, they help me get through. You know what I mean? So I'm a big believer of, like, I feel like these songs and lyrics are superpowers to us, man. And if somebody puts some positivity that hits you, then you should take that and use it. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. Dewan, what you got for us?
If you don't learn to bend, you will break.
Oh.
See, we have this thing about thinking that we control everything in our lives when we really don't.
Yeah.
It's all about current, right? You have to be able to have that foresight to know, like, okay, when times are changing, I just got to flow with it. That's how we get it. That's why a lot of us get anxiety, because we don't know how to follow the current.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I want to give you an opportunity. What do you got going on musically right now?
Working on a new record, working on the podcast as well. I'm excited.
Oh, that's
You guys will
awesome.
be hearing things from me real soon, I promise.
All right, next up, Jelly Bean. What you got for us?
For me, man, the struggle is real, bro. Say that all the time.
Straight up.
I drive my family nuts. I drive my friends nuts with it, but that's just how I feel. I just turned 65 in November, man. So,
oh man,
and I've been through it, So, and I'm still here. A lot of us is not, So that's the way I look at it, and I just, I just want to get to the other side, man. I'm in the fourth quarter, and I just want to, make sure I do some things here on Earth before I leave,
And tell people about this project you're working on right now.
The project I got going right now is I'm doing a museum. It's called MinneapolisSoundMuseum.com. And I just, I grew up with Prince. We all snotty-nosed North Side kids. But, I just want to, let everybody else know about the other people that came from there too, besides him and besides us. I mean, there's a lot of us that came from that, that grew up and dealt with this, man, being here in Minnesota where, us, we first of all, we were, quite talented at 14, 15, 16 years old. And, but we didn't have the vehicles to play. So, we played in the hood and we played at your Elks Club or for sororities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we just, I'm trying to get a little positive for the North Side. I grew up on the North Side. North Side is one of the hardest places we have here in Minnesota. We have a lot of stuff that go on over there. But I'm trying to, to show some positive that ain't all of us crazy that came from over there, and that it's trying to be a good thing, man. Just trying to show some positivity in life in these very troubling times that we're in.
Well, our prayers are with you. Our prayers are with everybody here, man. And it's just been such a fantastic night. We're not done with the quotes, man. But thank you so much, Jelly Bean. Jeff, you're just next in the mix. So I'm going to go to you next. What, you got a quote for us?
Sure. This is one. It's not exactly a quote, but it is a state of mind that somebody quoted or said, and I've stuck with it. It's very simple. Be intentional. Because once you take that mindset, it doesn't matter where you want to go and what you want to fix. If you choose to be intentional, you can get anything done. Anything can be achieved. So I've been living by that.
Yeah, and that's actually a really. It's funny that you say this because many of you are familiar with Zig Ziglar, but he said this. I saw him live one time by accident. I wasn't even there to see him, and for some reason he was on the docket, and I didn't even know. But he came out and said something that was really mind blowing to me. He was like, "You ever go on vacation?" Or you're about to go on vacation and it's your last day at work before you're about to take vacation, the amount of work that you're able to do in that period of time, that last day before, he says, if you took that same energy that you applied yourself on that day, he said, you would be at the top of your game and be a professional in your game within a year's period of time. If you just maintain that hustle. And I was like, dang, I never really thought of it. And yeah, when you get the other side of cramming like that, that's amazing. Morris, what you got for us?
That's really good. I got actually a couple just real quick. One that I love that resonates with me is there's nothing more powerful than a made up mind. It's like when you realize that moment when you say that's it, I'm going to do something, and you really mean it, and you really have that thing that's a point where you can make a shift in your life and other people's lives when you just say that I've made up my mind and I'm going to do what I got to do. The other one was from my brother Prince, who just had so many things that I learned. I know Bean, any of us that work with him, he always had some prolific stuff. And one thing he always used to say was, "It ain't a mistake until you stop." And so that's one that you keep it moving. It ain't a mistake until you stop.
Wow. Yeah. I heard him say that in time. So it was a concert that or some interview that he did, and he said, whenever I make a mistake on guitar, I just play it again, and then everyone thinks
Play
it
it
was
again.
intentional.
And he could do that.
That's the old Jimi Hendrix
do it
thing.
so well,
Nobody knew it.
so well that you can
It's
repeat a
Hendrix.
mistake and
Yep.
and then just make you think that that's what he intended to
That's
do.
what he intended to do. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Garrett, what you got?
I got a couple for you, a couple motivational ones. The first one is you won't learn to swim until you jump in the water.
Oh yeah.
That's one. And the other one is I'm sure everyone knows this one, but this is one that I always live by. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, preparation prevent physical performance.
Absolutely.
That's a
Yep.
big one. And so our two licensed therapists in the house, Jen, we'll start with you. Jen, you got a motivational one that comes to mind. There's always got to be words of wisdom that you always break out to your
I have
sure.
two that immediately come to mind. I write them up on the board in my office all the time. The first one is from Abraham Maslow, pretty famous psychologist. And that is, if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem begins to look like a nail. And so it just kind of encourages people to think outside of the box when you're encountering difficulties and not do it the same way you've always done it. But the other one, and I had a client actually put this on a plaque for me to put up on my wall because I say it all the time, which is life is too short to wear tight shoes.
That's a good
We put ourselves in a lot of circumstances that are very tight shoes.
Yeah.
Rob, I'm sure you probably have one.
I got two also, so I'm gonna go with the trend. So the first one is something that came to me recently, and it's about grief. When a person is born, we rejoice. This is from Margaret Mead. When a person is born, we rejoice, and when they're married, we jubilate. But when they die, we try to pretend nothing has happened. And the second one I have is from Thomas Merton. Happiness is not a matter of intensity, but of balance, order, rhythm, and harmony.
Yeah, that's a good one. Talk about rhythm. That's bring that full circle. Yoshiko. Oh, she changed situations.
Yes. Can I just say that my computer was not cooperating, so I'm using my phone. So,
all right.
But yes,
All right.
so I would have to say that I don't have a quote, but one thing that I just would like to share as far as, I guess my advice to everyone is that it's okay that you're not a superhero today. Today you can take your cape off. So many times we're, juggling so much stuff that we feel that we have to always be on top of stuff. And it's okay to rest today because you have tomorrow. And my next thing would be is that, it's okay. Like whatever it is that's going on today, it's okay. You'll get through it. So those would be my two advice to anybody who's going through anything, that you could take your cape off. It's okay.
Those are fantastic. All right. So, I got a couple more for you. Victoria Maxwell said, "We are not to blame for our illness, but we are responsible for our health."
Yeah.
So there's nothing you can do about these external circumstances that are affecting you and things that happen to you, but you can take care of yourself. And whether or not that's seeing a professional or whether or not that's figuring out ways to kind of overcome your bouts of depression or sadness or anxiety through meditation, whatever it is, that's an amazing quote. We are not to blame for our illness, but we are responsible for our health. So just focus on yourself and figure out how to make it work. And remember, this is a great one from Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
That's right.
That's a big one too.
That's right.
Ben, it's been an amazing panel. I know we lost a bunch of people. I lost Tony M. Paul Peterson did manage to send his love. He said he couldn't make it, but he sent his love out to everybody. He hopes everybody's doing well, and he's watching the show off and on. But what an amazing panel. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I hope this is not the last time that we do this, because I think it's something that we really, really need. But thank you guys so much. I know you guys are going through a lot of stuff right now, but God bless all of you. And, prayers up for every single one of you. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
This is great, Chris. Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. We will see you guys sometime soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.